Hi everybody, I hope you all are doing well. Today I'll be doing a book talk on Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. The first section of this video will be spoiler free, so if you haven't read this book you could stick around until I say so. Turtles All the Way Down is the story of a girl called Asa who is suffering with anxiety and obsessive compulsive disorder. I've seen the plot and the summarization of this book be described in so many different ways, but I would say personally the best way I can describe this book to y'all is that it is an exploration and articulation of the main character's experiences with these disorders in the context of what is currently going on in her life. So my overall thoughts are very simple. I like the writing in here. I like the stream of consciousness moment. I love the way that John Green explores this character's experiences with her mental health. I was not, however, enamored with the plot and the characters in this book. And that's why I ended up giving this a 3.5 stars. It's definitely a good book and I would recommend it, but I had my issues with it. So 3.5 stars, that's all I have to say. That doesn't include spoilers. If you haven't read this book, go read it and you can come back and watch this video. Okay, so now we're getting into spoiler territory. The first thing I want to talk about with regards to Turtles All the Way Down is the writing. As someone who was never really impressed with John Green's writing, I feel like his writing was very much improved in this book as compared to his previous works. As I said, I love the way that he expressed and talked about mental health, about anxiety, about OCD. As someone who has experienced anxiety, I can definitely speak to the accuracy of that portion of the main character's mental health representation. It really helps to contextualize the disorder in a critical way, and I feel like if you have anxiety, you could very much take away something from that book like me. I don't know how triggering it could be because as of right now, I've kind of improved on handling my anxiety. I don't really get that much anxiety anymore, but if you are easily triggered, I would say be a bit more cautious going into it. I like the way that he talked about OCD as well, and as somebody who I think he has experienced OCD, that very much came from a personal place. And some of the things that went on, like with Asa's whole callus cut thing on her finger, the way he described it at times and the way he described her thought processes about like germs and all of these different things, I found to be so gritty and so uncomfortable, and it really induced that sort of like that kind of blood crawling feeling in me, and that to me was a testament to his writing improving. I also really like the whole stream of consciousness thing where the main character would kind of go on like a little tangent and talk about things in a philosophical way. I know people don't really like that because they find that it's not realistic for a teenager to think that way, but I don't really have a problem with it. The only issue I have with it is that I feel like John Green kind of lets himself into the character too much. So it's like when you're reading it, you could tell that this is John Green. You could tell that you could see John Green sitting down and thinking about these things and typing it out, which is not exactly a good thing, but I still really enjoyed reading those portions of the book. I found that the whole lizard, chameleon, iguana shit, I don't know, like a dinosaur, it's not supposed to be a lizard, I don't know what the hell it is, but it's like, it's supposed to be like a sort of a metaphor for being obsessed with the mundane, because the billionaire guy, right, he loves this lizard more than his children. He leaves his fortune to his lizard, and that's because he's so rich and he's so obsessed with worldly things and he's so obsessed with the mundane that the thought of death scares him, and this lizard kind of becomes a representation for that because he wants to harvest the lizard's blood to kind of increase the lifespan of humans. And I found that to be especially interesting because he has what I would call death anxiety. Now, that wasn't said in the book, but death anxiety is a thing, right? And I think that when I experience health anxiety, because I too, like the main character, experience health anxiety or hypochondria as it's called, and that's intrinsically linked with a fear of death. And with anxiety, with my personal experience, you very much become comfortable and attached to the mundane and to worldly things, because that's what you know and that's what you're comfortable with. And part of anxiety for me was not wanting to step out of my comfort zone, even if it means thinking about things. And death became something very scary to me because it's something that could take you away from everything that you know. And when you're fully enamored with things that are of this world and things that are mundane and things that are material, you're afraid of death because that's the thing that will take you away from all of those things, and you don't know what will happen to you after that. Even if you're religious, like, you still don't know for sure. You still wonder, like, is this actually going to be like the case when I die? So I really enjoyed that aspect of this book. I don't know if that was John Green's intention, but I kind of drew that for myself in the story because it stood out to me because it's kind of true to my experience. Then there was the whole Turtles All the Way Down myth, which I found to be kind of interesting. Like, it was a good link. I understood the metaphor and how it very much is connected with the thought processes that comes with anxiety and OCD. However, I felt like John Green, like, honestly, one of the main reasons why I wanted to read this book, and one of the main reasons why I think a lot of people might have been curious to pick this book up, is because the title is so weird, and you want to know what does John Green mean by turtles all the way down. And even if you do decipher that it's the whole turtles all the way down myth, you still want to know what's the connection between that and the actual story at hand. So I feel like part of the big appeal of this book, I could be wrong, was the fact that people just wanted to know what the title meant, and that was a big appeal for me. And I found that when I got close to the end, and then you read that one page, that only page where they talk about it, it felt like, John Green was just using that as a bait to get the reader to kind of reach at that point, and then you'd be like, oh well, I'm already almost finished, so I might as well finish it. That might be me thinking a bit too poorly of John Green, but I couldn't help but think that, because I just really didn't understand why this one page warranted the entire title for the book. I understand how it represents the entire story in a certain way, but I just felt like one page is not enough for me to understand why you would want to name the entire book that. That was just a personal thing with me. You don't have to agree. I know lots of people would have probably liked that whole aspect of it, but I was just like, okay then. So now let's talk about the plot. I had somewhat of a love-hate relationship with the plot of this book, in the sense that I enjoyed it. It was an enjoyable plot, and it was, the typical unrealistic John Green plot, but I found it also to be completely unnecessary, and it distracted a lot from the characters, which I will get to when I talk about the characters. So, one thing that really annoyed me with this book is not really the book itself, but when people are reviewing it, they call it a mystery novel, and it's a mystery book, and it's not. The whole mystery aspect to this book, which is the missing billionaire, that's a subplot. Like, that is just a part of this book. The main thing about this book is the anxiety and the OCD and the main character's experiences with that. The subplot is not even a mystery subplot that much, because yes, you don't know where he is, yes, you don't know what happened to him, but with mystery books and with mystery plots, you get like constant building up. The characters are slowly but surely finding out, and then you have this big reveal at the end. Whereas with this book, they start doing that, and then they lose track of it, because the boy, what's his name, Davis, gives her the money, which I will talk about later again. He gives her the money, and she's just like, okay then, and her friend's like, okay then, they took the money, they're happy, and they're not like considering the mystery anymore. And then it's not until the end, by pure coincidence, that they find out what happened to the guy, right? So I was just like, this is not a mystery book. Stop calling it a mystery book. It's not a mystery book. Now that that's off my chest, there were certain aspects of the plot that I did found kind of funny but silly at the same time. Like the whole sewer thing. Now, I don't understand what it is with like American pop culture, but like, why is it y'all always going down in sewers? I don't know if it's because where I'm from, our sewage systems are not big enough for people to walk through. I know what, even if they were that big enough to walk through, you wouldn't find my ass dead down there, because I'm not going to be walking into rats or cockroaches or scorpions or fucking Pennywise the Clown. The only thing floating up in there is diseases, honey. But yet I would be watching these American shows and movies and reading these books, and these little white children just be jumping down in there like it was a water slide, just sliding up into the drain. And I'm just like, no, that's nasty, don't do that. So the whole, like, they're in a sewer, and the sewer is like this big kind of metaphor for her not being germophobic anymore, and then they go to the end and they find the dead body, or they smell the dead body, and I'm just like, why? Like, were you trying to be funny? Were you trying to be cool and hipster because there's an art show in the sewer? It was funny, and it was an interesting thing to explore and to include in the book, but honestly, I just didn't really care for it. I didn't really care for the whole subplot. I'm not saying that it shouldn't have been there, but what I personally felt should have happened is that this book should have been a bit longer. It was 285 pages, and I feel like the plot took away a lot from the characters. It distracted from the characters and the exploration of the characters. And I feel like if the book was longer, and you could still have that plot and that fun stuff going on the side, but we would have had a better idea of who these characters were, especially the main character. Which leads me into the final aspect of this book, which is characters, obviously. Again, as the book was so short, I feel like we didn't get a good enough time to explore who Asa was as a character. It was very much focused on either the subplot, her relationship with her best friend, her relationship with her boyfriend, or her anxiety and OCD. And I found that I really agree with Amy from the Dusty Bookshelves, who I will link up here and down below as well. She made a more critical review of this book, and she said that when she was done with it, she had to ask herself, who was Asa And she couldn't answer that because all we got about Asa was she had a mental illness and little things like she likes to eat cheeseburgers or veggie burgers or something like that. And I'm not saying that this book is guilty of that whole problematic trope of using the character as like a metaphor or a manifestation of their mental illness. No, Asa had a personality in this book. You could definitely tell that John Green had a strong sense of who this character was, but he didn't bring that forward. He didn't bring that to the forefront. I can't answer any questions about her because all you knew about her was that, you know, she had a mother, her dad's dead, her best friend is Daisy, her boyfriend is Davis, and she has anxiety and OCD. That's pretty much all we got from her, and I feel like if this book was longer, as I said, we would have gotten a lot more. With regards to the side characters, I wasn't really impressed with any of them. Davis was just weird. I honestly, like, his relationship with Asa was, it was not impressive. Like, I think a lot of people are lauding John Green because of the fact that he, you know, didn't let them end up being together in the end, which I understand because, you know, in all YA contemporaries, they always end up together in the end with their foot tangled and hugging up and kissing. But at the same time, because of the way their relationship was, I feel like them ending up together in the end would have been a terrible decision, which is why I don't really think that it was that big of a deal that John Green didn't make them end up together. I just found that they had no chemistry. Throughout the entire book, their relationship was very weird. It felt like they were very much friends, but forcing themselves to not be friends for whatever reason. And then there was the whole part where he gave her the money. Listen, y'all, I don't know. Listen. If you give me $100,000, as much as my ass loves money, as much as my ass loves material things, I'm not going to take it if I don't know you that well. She barely knew him and she took $100,000 from him and was like, okay, and then they continued their relationship like normal. Like, that's so weird. Why would you accept $100,000 from somebody without any guilt or stuff? Like, it just made no sense to me, and that wouldn't happen in real life. Like, somebody could give you $100,000, yes, but they wouldn't pursue a relationship with you after that. And then you would be like, no, why are you giving me this? She hesitated first. She was like, oh, no, I don't want it. Are you sure? Daisy and Asa's relationship, on the other hand, I really liked. Now, I like Daisy's character. I feel like we got a lot more about her. I feel like we learned a lot more about Daisy than we did about Asa. Like, she's so into Star Wars, she likes to write fan fiction, she shit-talked Asa in her fan fiction, which I found was, like, really funny. You know, and she's poor, she comes from a working-class family. I believe her parents are immigrants or something. I don't know if I'm just kind of confusing her with something else, but I believe at some point it's mentioned that her parents are immigrants. So she comes from a much less privileged background from Asa herself. And when they get the money, I really liked how John Green did that whole thing with immediate gratification. So Asa is just like, she needs to save her money for college, she needs to put the money away for so and so. But Daisy was just like, she went and bought a car, and Asa started criticizing Daisy for that. But, and this is a sociological thing, generally, not all the time, but in a lot of poor communities or among people who are poor or less privileged, because of the fact that they feel like they're not going to get any opportunities in the long run, they don't think in the long run, and because of that they fall prey to immediate gratification. So that's very much what happened with Daisy. She got the money, and instead of saving it, instead of putting it away or something like that, she immediately went and bought a car with it. And Asa doesn't really understand that, so Asa starts to criticize her for it, and Daisy gives her a very check your privilege moment, like, I've never had what you had, like, let me have this one thing. And I like that John Green sort of included that dynamic in the story, and it added a really good layer to their friendship. And I feel like if this book was longer, again, we would have had a much more in-depth exploration of that friendship, and I really enjoyed the friendship in this book. That's probably the only thing with regards to the characters that I liked, Asa and Daisy's friendship. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all of my thoughts on Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. I just did this unscripted off the top of my head, so I really can't remember if I had anything else to say about it. Obviously, I'll be talking about it in my next wrap-up. As I said before, I give this book 3.5 stars. It was a solid read, but it just didn't live up. It just wasn't as great as I think it's lauded to be. But everybody has their opinions. If you like this book, if you think it's trash, if you love it and it's the best thing ever, I want to hear your opinions in the comments down below. Or if you haven't read this book and you don't care to and you have something to say about that, that would be kind of fun to read as well. So leave everything in the comments. That's going to be it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely, lovely day, and until next time, inshallah, keep reading.